Hey, Lil, just wanted to take a moment to help you with your wonderful assessment here. I think you had already started it, so just going to continue off it. Question one: It says, "Let's think about the battle's events. This would be the stuff that you did on your timeline during World War II that you researched. Choose one of the items below to explain what you learned about your battle and why your battle is important in the Allies' success." So, if you remember the in-class assignment we did, where you had like those three timeline charts, you did some stuff, we did some writing. That's what I'm talking about here. The easiest thing would be, I'd pick something like Hiroshima, pick something like Operation. Um, oh my gosh, can't think of it. It's the D-Day in Normandy, um, and all you got to do is in the little paragraph tell me about it. And I'm not necessarily gonna care too much if you write it as a letter. Just tell me what made it successful. Which all you should have to do for that is you look at the columns that you filled in and kind of copy that over to this. Okay. Question two, it says Americans wanted to maintain economic boom of the 1920s. Were desperate for an answer to the Depression in the 1930s, but the U.S. did play an active role in the attempts at international disarmament and economic stability. All right, so this is just explaining what was going on in the U.S. Hey, we were going through a boom, then we had a depression, and now we're starting to build our way back up. The statement above is a reflection of U.S. foreign policy. What was the term used to identify U.S. foreign policy? So it's going to be like, hey, what special thing did we do that kept us out of the war? So you know it's not going to be interventionist. So it's going to be one of those two. Um, your answers for GO3. So if you go back to your notes, the section 3 notes should give you which one of those. Find the missing blank. This will be the chart that you filled in for number two GO. It'll have the answers to these. Looking for their last name. So, or I'm sorry, looking for what they did. So Mussolini was the first fascist that ruled. This is going to be the country that he ruled. In Germany, blank. So who was the ruler of Germany? Ruled the country under the Nazi Party. Japan was ruled over by Emperor blank, so looking for a name, and his military leader blank. And officials from the three Axis power countries signed the 10-year. There's a agreement that if you found it, um, that's the answer there. Again, this is going to be that chart from GO2. This should help you with this. Read each of the statements, which correctly describe the United States' stance towards the approaching war in Europe. So again, going back to like that timeline chart, you might have some of this in your notes too. Just depends on what you finished. So only three of the five are going to make sense here. So it has to be with the war in Europe. So anything that deals with like Asia or anything like that in the answers obviously won't be a part of it. Um, and if you actually think back to again this question, the answer isolationism or selective isolationism, both of them kind of infer that hey, the United States is staying out of the war. So anything about the United States really getting into war is also going to be bad. All right, and only need to pick three of them. Question five, it says read each of the statements which correctly describes the United States stance towards the approaching war in Pacific and Asia. Again, if you think back to the last one, if it deals anything in Europe, talks about like Germany or anything like that, it's probably not going to be an answer. And again, if it mentions anything about the United States attacking somebody or whatnot, probably not going to be that answer too. So these are things about getting us to war. Question six. After the attacks on Pearl Harbor, Americans quickly changed their views on entering the war, which apply to how the U.S. viewed the war at home. All right. Hopefully, you'll be able to figure this one out. easily. One of these answers is going to stick out pretty well. Number 7 is the one that might seem a little intimidating. So I'm going to walk you through this one. So you just got to plug in the answers as we go along. So after Pearl Harbor, the United States needed to quickly blank themselves. This would be mobilize. Oops. Maybe. Okay, I got it. Mobilize themselves if they were going to fight multiple wars in Europe and in the Pacific. It was during this time that that's going to be Roosevelt, was given unprecedented power under a newly created law called the War Powers Act. This new law created bureaucracies and agencies that were controlled by blank and managed by the president. This would be federal government. For example, the Office of War Information directed the press and news about the war, and the Office of Strategic Service had the ability to ignore privacy laws to spy on citizens during the war. These agencies vastly changed the concept and scopes of power of our government. The most infamous was blank, which allowed the president in 1942 to relocate Japanese American citizens into internment camps as a means to prevent espionage. That would be Executive Order 9066. Even though some of the new powers of the federal government were blank, most of the new policies were created in order to prepare the country for war. Even though some of the were sus. The government used various forms of blank. This would be propaganda. To encourage people to join the war effort and fight the good fight. Americans were asked to buy blank to help pay for the war. That would be Liberty bonds. Plant victory gardens. To plant victory gardens in their backyards, and blank goods. That would be ration goods like rubber, tin, coffee, and sugar that our soldiers would need overseas. Just like in the last World War, many men and women volunteered to fight in the war. An additional 10 million were drafted into the war effort thanks to the War Powers Act. The most impressive home front achievement was the ability of the United States to outproduce our enemies industrially. The United States economy exploded during the onset of the war, causing where was it here? Great Depression. There it is. The Great Depression to evaporate almost overnight. Seemingly overnight, millions of people went back to work building ships, tanks, and airplanes. Over 6 million women left their homes and traditional roles to work the assembly lines. Millions of African Americans, hoping for a new life, led a great migration, as over 10 million fled the South to head north and enter the workforce. Our enemies could not match U.S. production, which was a key factor in helping the United States win the war. All right. So these are the answers. Feel free to pause just to make sure you have everything correct. Last one, you're just kind of tying these in. You have African Americans, women, Japanese Americans, and Mexican Americans. So as you read over these, some of them are going to pop out. Should define, like presented new jobs. Rosie the Riveter sounds like a woman's name. So just make sure that you read these carefully. They should stand out. And then for the last one, don't pick maybe. Don't pick maybe. Don't pick maybe. All right. That's all I have for you. If you need anything, let me know.